Traditional fisheries throughout the tropics are in decline, threatening the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of coastal people. This is especially true in the Western Indian Ocean, where in countries like Kenya, Tanzania and Madagascar, communities have few alternatives to fishing. Over the past 2 decades, community-based aquaculture, or CBA, has emerged as a potential solution, providing coastal communities with a viable alternative to fishing, whilst also having the potential to contribute to biodiversity conservation. Despite these efforts, we know little about the degree to which community-based aquaculture has impacted livelihoods, food security, and marine biodiversity. In December of 2013, the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association, Blue Ventures, and the University of Dar es Salaam's Institute of Marine Sciences held a workshop in Zanzibar, bringing together a diverse group of researchers, government officials, practitioners, and community members to explore these questions. Specifically, the group aimed to evaluate community-based aquaculture's socio-economic and environmental impacts, identify the major challenges CBA faces, and recommend best practices based on lessons learned from previous and existing projects.
When I came to the workshop, I was a little bit skeptical about the potential for community-based aquaculture in the Western Indian Ocean. I think experience shows that community-based aquaculture hasn't really delivered the tons and the value. However, there was a really rich diversity of experience presented at the workshop, which illustrates that community-based aquaculture has really got traction in certain areas, such as Zanzibar and Madagascar and Kenya. And it's an extensive form of aquaculture that is now being practiced over wide areas, particularly seaweed farming. A lot of these areas are marine protected areas, and there seems to be real benefits in communities buying into managing local areas sustainably for a livelihood benefit, which is probably complementing or enhancing the objectives of the marine protected areas. So instead of going fishing unsustainably or harvesting forest, they are now doing activities such as growing seaweed. So even though the income is really low and the tonnage maybe doesn't feature too much in national statistics, it seems like there is some real value to livelihoods. What I also found interesting was there's many high-value species of interest, such as sea cucumbers, mud crabs, abalone, even shrimp. So community-based aquaculture is not necessarily restricted to just low-value products.
There is a lot of potential because human beings have a nature of learning from each other. So when they see that these ones started an initiative and they are successful, then they also start. So it is actually spreading. We see it is spreading in many coastal areas.
Personally, I have been involved in mariculture activity in Zanzibar since the early 90s with the women involvement in Fumba Peninsula. These were funded by USAID. And in those, communities have been involved in the culture of bivalves in pens. They've been involved in the culture of in pearl farming activity, although most of it is done by men, but the women are also involved. And they're also involved in seaweed farming. Seaweed farming is something which started in 1989 in Zanzibar, but it's still ongoing. They've established no-take zones, which they are monitoring themselves. The women are monitoring themselves. And then the results, they display to the community to show how it's working. So in that sense, they're also conserving the environment or biodiversity.
CBA can assist in biodiversity conservation in the sense that many of those that have been formed in Kenya have in their constitution or their management structure the idea of biodiversity conservation in mind, especially those communities that are doing pond-based aquaculture in the mangrove areas. It is within their system to conserve, to do reforestation and conserve the mangrove ecosystem. a community-based aquaculture can supplement fishing activity, rather than replace it, because it's really difficult to replace fishing as such. But as a supplementary or an additional activity, I think it will be, because this would, in the end, reduce the pressure on fishing and make the resources more sustainable.
And I would say, due to the dwindling resource base, especially capture fisheries, I think there's a need to venture into aquaculture and mariculture, both as an additional and also as an alternative. I'm saying as an additional in the sense that in some area within the region, doesn't mean that changing people's way of livelihood, and they can do it on top of what they are doing currently. On an alternative, I would say alternative is, in some area it can be an alternative, especially in an area where capture fisheries has really gone down.
Fitaona moa zay nanaovako ny asa fampandrosoana ny tontolo ambanivohitra teto Madagasikara. Dia ny azoko lazaina dia azo atao tsara ho velomam-po ny asa fiharena zanga sy ny fambolea-lomotsy. Ohatra amin'izay dia ireo fermier miara-miasa mitetika asa ireo, misy ny efa mampiditra mihoatra ny atao hoe ray hetsy isam-bola. Dia amin'io ray hetsy isam-bola io ny azo atao référence dia misy olo aty amin'ny faritra aty, olo miasa isam-bola, miasa manan-karama atao hoe ray hetsy isam-bola zay dia olo manana ny plasiny, manana ny mahizy azy eo amin'ny fiarahamonina.
Dependence of the community on donor funding. So, for example, we bought them different things, we bought them all the material. So now we're leaving this to themselves now. How do they continue? So we have had to give them a lot of training, leadership skills, being able to do this work without being dependent on donors. So that's a challenge. Will they be able to continue? The major priorities for development of CBAs is first, the community themselves should be willing to do that thing. It should not be a top-bottom approach. It should be a bottom-up approach. The community themselves should make the decision. They should decide what they want, and then there is a hope of it continuing.
One of the challenges is marketing. That we have, for example, some products that are produced by the people, but then the market is very limited. I think we need to focus on more training, especially on value addition, marketing aspects. These are the things that people really need. And also to bring networking between different communities. They can do like benchmarking, visiting each other, learning from each other, and actually working together. If we have this a common forum where CBAs in the region can be meeting and exchanging ideas, information, skills, this will be very good for the region.
And I think the challenge then is for community-based aquaculture producers to move from being price takers, and for the promoters of community-based aquaculture promoting this activity, not just to promote culture technology, but really to then move to looking at a value chain approach to community-based aquaculture, so that communities can be empowered to participate more fully through the full value chain. And I think the message which came very clearly out of the workshop is that our regulatory and formal government is really just not keeping pace with the needs on the ground for integrated and responsive local area management. Good progress has been made in writing policies and management plans, but there's a huge amount of work to do to filter this through into the actual management on the ground.
The workshop on the community-based aquaculture has been a really good networking forum, and it has made the network of people exchange a lot of ideas in a short period of time. And I think it's a forum that has given an opportunity for a network to be built later on, and to make us maybe follow common initiatives for the future development of community-based aquaculture.
Community-based aquaculture workshop, which was held in Zanzibar, was very helpful because I was able to meet with different people from different parts of the world, which I've never met before. And also I got experiences of what other people are doing. So I learned about their challenges and how they solve them, which will make it easier for us to continue here if we start community-based aquaculture activity.